hi, it's Giedra and I'm gonna do the review of Neil Gaiman's American Gods. This is my second Neil Gaiman book. The first one was Neverwhere and I loved it. I couldn't stop reading Neverwhere and it was 5 out of 5 stars. I found it entertaining, brilliant characters, I loved it. And then American Gods was sat on my bookshelf for about a year and I couldn't just, for one reason or another, I just couldn't pick it up and start reading. And then on Goodreads, I joined a group who was reading it in March, and I expected to read it in probably 1 or 2 weeks. It took me 3 weeks to read it because about halfway through or 70% into the book I just hit the wall and I couldn't make myself pick it up and read it anymore. So it took me about a week to read about 70 pages, which was really weird because although a lot of people dislike the book, and I know there are a lot of people who rave about it and who say this is one of the best books ever. There were quite a few who said, look, I'm really struggling reading Gaiman and I picked this up, I started and I hated the character and I hated the book and I can't read it anymore. I felt nothing like that to start with. I loved Shadow, I loved the main character and I enjoyed reading the book. And I know a lot of people were questioning why Shadow is so numb and lifeless and he's not questioning anything and he's just doing whatever happens. And I kind of had my own theories and it was good to see towards the end of the book that I was right. So I think again this book, there are so many different meanings to it and I think everybody can see and interpret it based on their own experience and their own expectations, and everybody sees what they want to see in the book. So I know it's a book about America and the people who live there and about the gods and what we all believe in and what we used to believe in, and really it's so hard to explain. To me personally, it was a book about a person who has no hope left, whose soul is shattered because of what happened to him. And if you haven't read the book, then you shouldn't be watching this because there will be some spoilers. But basically it's about a man named Shadow. I think he's 32 or 33. And after 3 years he's leaving prison. He's released a couple of days or a couple of months earlier than expected. He was sentenced to prison because of what he's done. I think he helped to commit a robbery and it turns out he did it for his wife, not because he wanted to, but he was protecting his wife and he was happy that, she remained, she was never suspected or never committed. So anyway, he's leaving the prison to go and see his wife and he's really looking forward to it. And then he finds out on the morning when he's due to come out of prison that his wife had died in a car crash. So he leaves prison and he has kind of nowhere else to go because he was gonna go back to his town where he lived with his wife, but his best friend who had a job for him had died in that car crash as well. So he goes back only to find out that apparently his wife was unfaithful to him, and that kind of makes it even harder for Shadow, and he meets this man called Wednesday who offers him a job, and that's where all the weird stuff starts happening. So a lot of people were saying, why is Shadow just doing whatever he's told to do? Why is he not questioning anything? And I thought it was because he left prison where he spent 3 years of his life. He learned not to question things, just to go with the flow, just kind of be quiet and stay out of trouble. And also he had nothing left to live for, so I think it was his defense mechanism really to not to question anything, just to go with the flow. I thought he was just numb to everything, and that's why he just did whatever he was told to do. And it was good to find out in the book, later in the book, that I was right, because at some point Wednesday says, why don't you argue? Why don't you exclaim that it's all impossible? Why the hell do you just do what I say and take it all so fucking calmly? Because you're not paying me to ask questions, said Shadow. And then he said, realizing the truth as the words came out of his mouth. Anyway, Nothing's really surprising me since Laura, since she came back from the dead, since I learned she was screwing Robbie. That one hurt. Everything else just sits on the surface. So that explains why why Shadow is the way he is. And I really enjoyed the story up until about, like I said, halfway through the book, or 70% in. I just hit the wall. I just couldn't read any further, and it was just like, I would compare it to a really rich dessert. You know, when you start eating a cake and you think it's brilliant and it tastes so nice, and after a couple of mouthfuls you just think, oh my god, I can't read it anymore, I can't eat it anymore because it's just too rich and I'm gonna be sick. Well, this is what this book was like to me. I enjoyed all the gods introduced, all the stories and everything, and then it just became too much. I thought there was enough material to maybe write 2 or 3 books, whereas I felt Neil Gaiman just crammed everything into this one book, and sometimes it wasn't hard to follow, but there were just so many characters and there were so many references to different gods and religions, and I wanted to stop and read about them all, so I kept looking them up, you know, online and trying to read things about them, but there were just too many, and I thought, why? And I just couldn't carry on. But then again, I finished the book this morning and I changed my mind again, and I thought it was brilliant. So I think ideally this book should be read 2 or 3 times to kind of pick up on everything that's important and, you know, recognize all the important characters, but to be honest, I'm not sure I'm gonna do that. So basically, to me it was a story of a broken man and how he went through weird things and how he dealt with things, and how faith and religion help us and sometimes they ruin us, and how we put our hopes into the hands of God. And I don't know, it's hard to explain, but this is my interpretation of the book anyway. So there's like a clash between the old religions and the new world, like computers and media and everything, and this one bit I thought was a bit kind of corny and cheesy, but it was kind of truth as well. When Lucy from TV sets starts talking to Shadow, Shadow says, "Who are you?" "Okay," she said, "good question. I'm the idiot box. I'm the TV. I'm the all-seeing eye and the world of the cathode ray. I'm the boob tube. I'm the little shrine the family gathers to adore. You're the television, or someone in the television. The TV's the altar. I'm what people are sacrificing to." "What do they sacrifice?" asked Shadow. "Their time mostly," said Lucy. "Sometimes each other." So this is true. This is, you know, in the past we turned to religion whether we were hurt or lost or we were hoping for something, whereas now we kind of become a bit numb and we turn to TVs and computers and we get distracted by them. So I think this was quite a good bit. And really one other bit that I absolutely loved, and it describes this book and the meaning of this book really well, I thought, was this. Let me just find it for you. "People believe," thought Shadow. "It's what people do. They believe, and then they will not take responsibility for their beliefs. They conjure things and do not trust their conjurations. People populate the darkness with ghosts, with gods, with electrons, with tales. People imagine, and people believe. And it is that belief, that rock-solid belief, that makes things happen." So this is true, I thought, and especially when you read through the book you kind of see what he meant. And then this quite a long bit that I'm going to read to you, it really kind of shook me because I thought it was so true, and it explained why we read and why we imagine things and why we turn to fiction and what our lives are like and what media is like. And see if you agree with me, but I thought this bit was just absolutely brilliant. "No man," proclaimed Donny, "is an island, and he was wrong. If we were not islands, we would be lost, drowned in each other's tragedies. We are insulated, a word that means literally, remember, made into an island, from the tragedy of others, by our island nature, and by the repetitive shape and form of the stories. We know the shape, and the shape does not change. There was a human being who was born, lived, and then, by some means or other, died. There. You may fill it in with details from your own experience. As unoriginal as any other tale, as unique as any other life. Lives are snowflakes, unique in detail, forming patterns we have seen before, but as like one another as peas in a pod. And have you ever looked at peas in a pod? I mean, really looked at them? There's not a chance you'd mistake one for another after a minute's close inspection. We need individual stories. Without individuals, we see only numbers. 1,000 dead, 100,000 dead. Casualties may rise to 1,000,000. With individual stories, the statistics become people, but even that is a lie, for the people continue to suffer in numbers that themselves are numbing and meaningless. Look, see the child's swollen belly, and the flies that crawl at the corners of his eyes, his skeletal limbs. Will it make it easier for you to know his name, his age, his dreams, his fears, to see him from the inside? And if it does, are we not doing a disservice to his sister, who lies in the searing dust beside him, a distended creature of a distended caricature of a human child? And there, if we feel for them, are they now more important to us than 1,000 other children touched by the same famine? 1,000 any other young lives who will soon be food for the flies' own myriad squirming children? We draw our lines around these moments of pain and remain upon our islands, and they cannot hurt us. They are covered with a smooth, safe, nacreous layer to let them slip, pearl-like, from our souls without real pain. Fiction allows us to slide into these other heads, these other places, and look out through other eyes. And then in the tale we stop before we die, or we die vicorously and unharmed, and in the world beyond the tale we turn the page or close the book, and we resume our lives, a life which is like any other, unlike any other. And this is very true. And when I finished the book, because the ending was better than, I expected, it's about the country, it's about a nation, and it's also about a personal journey. And although at some bits it was really difficult to read, and I know some people didn't like the bit about the lakeside, I found these quite like a breath of fresh air, because everything kind of slowed down and focused only on a couple of characters rather than keep throwing different characters and gods in. So I enjoyed those books, and I thought they were really important. So I think I'm swaying towards 4 stars, although for about 30% of the book I thought, no, it's going to be 3 stars, and I am really disappointed, but the ending kind of changed my mind again, and I'm really happy I finished the book. And although I will agree with the people who say there's just too many characters crammed into the book, I agree with that, but at the same time I think there are so many things in the book that would require further research, further thought, and I think we'll all see the story from our perspective, and we'll relate to, those characters or those traits of shadow that are similar to, to our own. So yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's a great book. It does get quite complicated at times, and it does, you might struggle at some bits, but at the end of the day, I think there's so much more to it than meets the eye. And although I felt really stupid and I felt really frustrated at some bits, I think it's a clever one. And yeah, I think I'll keep thinking about it, and I'll keep discovering, hidden meanings in subplot stories and secondary stories and plot lines after I put it down and left it. But yeah, if you haven't read it, I mean, if you like Gaiman, by all means try and read it. If not, I can see why you wouldn't, if you struggle to go through it, I kind of see why. But like I said, I think for me it's gonna be 4 stars book. And yeah, I think it was good. At the end of the day, I thought it was definitely worth reading. Thanks for watching. Bye.